Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, Kenya has been hit by a string of major terror attacks carried out by Al-Qaeda affiliate Al-Shabaab. The most infamous attack was against the Westgate shopping mall in September 2013 when Saturday shoppers were gunned down in cold blood. But the death toll from that incident, 67 lives, was overshadowed by an assault on a university just over 2 months ago. 148 people died when gunmen massacred students in Garissa, northern Kenya. And what has become the calling card of Al-Shabaab, Muslims were allowed to go free while Christians were slaughtered. Al-Shabaab say their attacks are revenge for Kenya's military intervention in neighbouring Somalia. They've become much more than a Somali group, extending their influence deep inside Muslim communities in Kenya to an extent that indigenous extremism and sectarianism are beginning to take root. Duncan Woodside and Capucine Dayan crossed Kenya to bring us this report on the country's emerging security crisis. We start in the town of Garissa, where Christians feel under siege.
Members of the small Christian community in Garissa gather for breakfast. It's Ramadan, and Al-Shabaab have warned of fresh attacks against targets here in Kenya. Even before the Garissa University massacre on April 2nd, Christians had been repeatedly targeted. Titus was hit by a bullet when the Islamic extremists opened fire in a church here 4 years ago.
This is the exit. This is the exit.
Most Christians in Garissa just work here, leaving their families elsewhere.
There was a time we were staying here, but due to the security which has come, this is the time where I saw it's good to take the family home.
Terrorism is a hot topic of conversation. People keep vanishing from a range of Kenyan communities.
There's that guy who went to Uganda, to a religious school. He was someone educated. He started calling home saying he had left for Uganda. So his brother asked him, "You're not joining the Al-Shabaab, are you? Because if you are, and you get caught, well, nobody will blame us because we don't know why you've left." Then after the Shabaab attackers were killed, his brother identified him. He was among the dead attackers.
In Nairobi, there are so many of them who have gone to Somalia.
Have they come back?
Some of them have come back and have now even been turned to be on the side of the government, informing them.
On the surface, the atmosphere here is calm. But when we go to see another Christian, he retreats into his shop, too scared to talk to us on camera.
This place, this area, is more sensitive. It's not like the other place. You know, that other place is the business are haunted by the non-Kenyans.
Like many Christians here, Titus works in construction. He's got a contract from an ethnic Somali to build a house, arguably affording him some protection.
I'm very conversant with them. I've stayed here long. I have much experience to be on the side of the construction. And tell me I'm faithful. If they give me their money.
He's completed a number of building projects here to a high spec.
You have to wipe away all that dust before you start anything else. Once you're done, you can start with the paint.
But despite Titus winning the confidence of wealthy local Somalis, some of his labourers, who are all Christian, still fear for their safety.
I saw people throwing grenades here, but this is the only place where I've managed to get a job. And since I don't have much education, this is the only work that I can do.
The Garissa University attack was Al-Shabaab's biggest in Kenya. There were at least 147 victims, and in what has become the calling card of this Al-Qaeda branch, Muslims were allowed to go free, while Christians were slaughtered. Martin is a survivor of that massacre. He's come home to Kenya's highlands. He lost 2 of his best friends when Shabaab gunmen attacked just before dawn on the day before the Easter holiday. He escaped by climbing over the university fence, but found that Muslims refused to provide sanctuary.
You get to someone's home, and then he tells you or she tells you, no, just go back. Now they are speaking in their language. You don't understand. You can't understand their language. And they close the door. What do? You're confused. You are alone. Just imagine where I was alone.
Eventually, Martin says, a local man took him and some other escapees into his home before warily pointing to an escape route, but stressing he couldn't be seen talking to them by fellow Somalis. Areas close to the Somali border are not the only ones affected by al-Shabaab. The Joy of Jesus Church in the largely Muslim coastal town of Likoni was attacked by gunmen in March last year. 4 people died, dozens were injured. More than a year later, many parishioners are still too frightened to return.
The first person that was shot was lying down. Even until today, we've cleaned it, but it refused to go away. It was a total chaos. The place looked like, I don't know, hell. Blood everywhere, people crying, screaming, bullet holes, with cartridges everywhere.
George says it took some time even to persuade his wife to attend church again. He's determined not to succumb to the temptation of hatred or the desire for revenge.
The intention is to create animosity between the Christians and the Muslims so that they can find it easy. And like when we were hit, some people thought, no, we should condemn the Islam, but we cannot do that because that's the intention of the enemy.
Where have you been?
It's not just elements of the Christian community that feel under siege. Mombasa, Kenya's second city. Reputedly a hotbed of radicalization, Kenyans buying into al-Shabaab's ideology, triggering a brutal crackdown by the authorities. Human rights group has been collecting evidence that points to widespread extrajudicial killings of Muslim terror suspects by the police.
We have documented over 80 cases of disappearings, 80 cases of killings, extrajudicial killings, and clearly you can see that the police have no intention of investigating this.
We are now going to see Mama Nadia. Mama Nadia is a bereaved lady whose son was brutally killed September last year. And
anti-terror police allegedly barged their way into Nadia Mohammed's home, apparently looking for one of her sons, Ismail Mohammed, only to shoot dead her other son, Idris.
They refused to switch on the light. They were just using their guns, which has light. They they searched everywhere and were just seated. I heard that. I didn't think that they've killed my son. I thought it was just scaring. I keep on crying because I was shaking. Even the urine was coming out without stop. When I told my son to go and close the door, he told me, Mama, there is a body here lying down. Body. When I get out, my son was killed there lying. I found the head is bleeding and there is blood here. And I started shouting for help. They've killed my son, and they've already went. They've gone now. I'm just me and my son and the one who was killed there. My son was not a terrorist. They killed my son and he was my firstborn.
We repeatedly requested an interview from the police, but they failed to respond.
Ndio nasema, it's okay. In Nairobi, we're just going to present our documents to the Kenya National Counterterrorism Center in South Sea. You'll present today.
Fahad continues to investigate this and other alleged extrajudicial killings. But his work is hampered. The accounts of Muslims for human rights are frozen by the government due to alleged links to extremists. One of the areas perceived to be most vulnerable to Shabaab recruitment is the northern reaches of Kenya's coast. Lamu County is one such hotspot, an area teeming with disaffected young people. Thousands of youngsters here, like Jacob, have reason to be angry. They're anxiously awaiting their national identity cards, according to the county government. Some allegedly for up to 2 years, and without it, they can't get a job or open a bank account.
I feel annoyed. I have 2 arms and legs, but I have no job.
A lack of ID also makes it impossible to travel, so that these young men, all 18 or 19, are effectively prisoners in their hometown.
I feel like I'm not a citizen. At 18 age, we have to have ID. So it may be a big case and suspected us that we are not Kenyans. So it may become something very dangerous to our life.
Making things even more difficult for people along the coast, tourism has been hit by travel advisories from Western governments. Beaches lie empty and young men stand idle. Many are becoming desperate.
We have nothing to do completely. Like today, I have 3 days or 4 days without even something to do. I have done nothing, and I'm hungry, and I don't know where will I go to eat this evening. So I'm ready to do anything, even to join Al-Shabaab. If someone come here and says that there is a chance to go in Al-Shabaab, I swear I go.
Herein lie the dynamics of sectarianism and rising extremism in Kenya. Poverty, marginalisation and police brutality, driving a wedge between communities. The question is, can the current trend be reversed before it's too late?
Our reporter Duncan Woodside joins us now from Nairobi. Duncan, thank you so much for your report. Big questions raised by it, of course, especially on the conduct of Kenya's security forces, but as yet, no real answers.
Well, that's right. Yes, it's been very difficult to pin the police down in terms of getting an interview. We've been trying for several weeks, and eventually this afternoon, just before coming on air, we got a response by email. Now, what the police are saying is that they're not aware of the case of Nadia Mohammed and her son, her slain son, Idris, being referred to the Independent Police Oversight Authority. But that's something which obviously runs counter to what we heard on the ground. Now, this killing, or this apparent killing, alleged killing by the police, is part of a wider pattern of significant violence by the Kenyan police force. There are big allegations here, and it extends not just to terror suspects, but wider society. A recent survey by an NGO, which looked in detail at several different cities, 5 cities, said that over the last 5 years, the police are responsible for killing over 1,250 people in shootings. And obviously, that's a big claim, a big allegation, which apparently or seems to underscore the security crisis here and the lack of confidence within the police force in Kenya.
Duncan, Al-Shabaab says it's attacking Kenya because of its mission in the south of Somalia. Is there any sign that Kenya may be rethinking that?
Well, that's right. Yes, it's very obvious that since Kenya went into southern Somalia in October 2011, the attacks on Kenyan soil by Al-Shabaab have ramped up, and it is in direct response to that, some would say, occupation of southern Somalia. Now, at the moment, the government is steadfast in its intention to keep troops across the border. That's supported by the West, but it's not supported by Kenya's opposition. The main opposition leader here having said for some time now that Kenya should withdraw its troops because of the blowback that's occurring.
Duncan, are we seeing a parallel in Kenya to the situation that we've had in Nigeria with Boko Haram?
It's a bit early to talk about that. In Nigeria, thousands of people died last year in violence related to Boko Haram and clashes with the security forces. That's not the case here on Kenyan soil. The number of people killed, numbers in the 100s so far since Kenya started to occupy southern Somalia. That, at least, is the death toll here in Kenya. But at the same time, obviously, the dynamics are there for further escalation, given what we've talked about, the apparent brutal response of the police to terrorism, and, of course, this continued presence, aggravating presence of Kenyan troops in Somalia. So things could potentially escalate significantly from here, but it will take quite a long time before we reach a Nigeria type of scenario. That's very much the worst case scenario.
Duncan Woodside in Nairobi, thank you very much indeed. See Duncan's report again. Of course, go to our website, france24.com. This is Reporters. You're watching France 24. Stay with us.